You know that moment when someone says something so cutting, it doesn't just hurt, it changes everything. That happened to me at a family barbecue in Phoenix, and what I did next shocked everyone, including myself. I'm Sarah Martinez, 34 years old, and for 8 years I was married to David Reynolds, whose family treated me like I was auditioning for a role I'd never actually get. Last summer at their annual cookout in their Scottsdale mansion, his sister Jessica made a comment so sharp it sliced right through 7 years of trying to fit in. Honestly, if Sarah just vanished tomorrow, would any of us really miss the silence? She said, smirking over her perfectly grilled salmon. The whole patio erupted in laughter. Even David chuckled like it was just another family roast. I simply raised my corn on the cob, looked her dead in the eye, and said calmly, "Want to test that theory?" That night, I packed one suitcase and disappeared without a trace. But let me start from the beginning. David and I met during our last year at Arizona State University. I was hustling between my marketing classes and bartending at this intimate jazz lounge downtown, barely scraping together rent money. He was cruising through his finance degree, every expense covered by his family's old Arizona money. He'd hang around after my shifts, not caring what drinks I made, just wanting to hear about my dreams of starting my own marketing consultancy. Within months, we were inseparable. By graduation, he proposed with this stunning turquoise ring that probably cost more than my entire college fund. I thought I'd struck gold, not just finding love, but gaining this whole established family. The Reynolds clan was practically royalty in Phoenix business circles. His dad, William Reynolds, owned a massive real estate development company. His mom, Patricia, ran the social scene and organized every charity gala worth attending. Jessica was climbing the corporate ladder at their family firm, while his younger brother Tyler somehow landed this cushioned position at their uncle's investment company in Denver. Meanwhile, I came from the complete opposite world. My single mom, Rosa, worked double shifts at a diner and cleaned offices on weekends just to keep us afloat. My younger sister Carmen and I shared everything: cloves, dreams, and a pull-out couch until I left for college. Our celebrations weren't catered affairs. They were potluck dinners with whatever we could afford and generic sodas from the corner store. Walking into the Reynolds estate for the first time, this sprawling, hacienda-style mansion in Paradise Valley, felt like stepping onto a movie set where I definitely wasn't the star. Patricia would examine my handmade business cards like they were cute crafts projects, not my actual livelihood. William would lecture me about marketing fundamentals, like I hadn't been running successful campaigns for local businesses. Jessica would correct everything from how I pronounced wine regions to fashion brands, always with this sugar-sweet smile that never reached her eyes. Whenever I brought up how uncomfortable this made me, David would brush it off. "They're just trying to help, babe. That's Jessica's way of including you." If that was inclusion, it felt more like slow poison disguised as hospitality. At our wedding, Jessica's maid of honor speech featured 3 detailed stories about David's ex. Nobody stopped her. When we bought our first house in Tempe, she commented, "Cute starter home, but isn't that area a bit transitional for a Reynolds?" When I landed this major contract with a tech startup that got featured in Phoenix Business Journal, she casually wondered if I got the deal because of the Reynolds connection. Still, I kept trying. God knows, I tried everything. I volunteered for Patricia's charity events, sent referrals to William's company, never forgot birthdays or anniversaries. I wore their approved outfits, learned their country club language, and stayed quiet through endless dinner conversations about European vacations and private school rankings. But nothing I did was ever quite right. I maintained my consultancy, though it was struggling, until David got this huge promotion requiring constant travel without any real discussion. Everyone just assumed I'd scale back my work to manage everything at home. So I did. My business shrank, my world got smaller, and slowly, my confidence disappeared. Then I lost the baby. 12 weeks, and I was completely alone. David was in Chicago closing some major deal. Patricia sent flowers with a card that read, "Everything happens for a reason. Maybe when life settles down more." Jessica texted me, "Are you sure it wasn't stress from juggling too many projects?" Only Carmen flew in from Tucson to sit with me. She brought homemade soup and just held me while I cried. The difference between her genuine care and their cold distance broke something inside me, but I buried those feelings deep. When the annual family cookout came around a few months later, I decided to give it one final shot. I made my grandmother's famous tres leches cake, the only dessert Jessica had ever complimented. I wore this soft blue sundress I knew Patricia would approve of. David was distracted, preparing for his upcoming trip to Singapore, barely helping me carry anything to the car. At the Reynolds estate, the outdoor kitchen was already busy. Mariachi music played softly in the background, and their usual crowd of influential friends sipped margaritas under elegant umbrellas. David immediately got pulled into business talk with his father and their partners. I tried once more. I joined conversations, offered to help the catering staff, laughed at appropriate moments. Jessica spotted me first. "Sarah, that dress is optimistic," she said, air-kissing David before walking away. I brought my cake to the kitchen where Patricia barely glanced at it. "Oh sweetie, you really didn't need to. We ordered from that amazing bakery in Old Town." She gestured toward the pantry. "Just set it over there." We're showcasing Jessica's key lime tart on the main table. The rest of the afternoon was a masterclass in polite exclusion. Tyler's new wife, married only 18 months, got introduced as our brilliant pediatric nurse. I was still just David's wife. What was her name again? At lunch, I ended up between Gretuncle Roberto, who was mostly deaf, and an empty chair saved for Jessica. When she arrived, she claimed that spot like it was her throne and launched into this story about running into some celebrity at her yoga studio. Everyone leaned in like she was sharing state secrets. Even Patricia beamed with pride. During a brief lull, I tried sharing some good news. "I just finished this branding project for a local bakery," I said. "They're opening next month in downtown Phoenix." Jessica looked at me blankly. "Wait, you mean that place with the terrible neon sign on Central Avenue?" I explained that the design celebrated the building's original 1950s architecture. That's when she delivered the line that changed everything. With this bored sigh, she muttered, "Honestly, if Sarah just vanished tomorrow, would any of us really miss the silence? Your stories are putting me to sleep." Everyone laughed. Even David reached for his beer like it was just another Tuesday afternoon. My hands went numb. My face burned hot, but I didn't flinch. Instead, I raised my corncob in a mock toast, locked eyes with her, and said, "Want to test that theory?" Silence stretched for maybe 3 seconds. Then Uncle Roberto called out, "Who's ready for William to carve that brisket?" And just like that, the moment passed, but in my mind, everything had shifted completely. I stopped being a Reynolds that day. I started being Sarah again. The drive home was suffocating quiet. David scrolled through emails about his Singapore expansion while I stared out the window, arms wrapped tight around myself like armor. When we pulled into our driveway, he finally noticed my silence. "Everything okay?" he asked. "You've been weird since lunch." I looked straight ahead. Jessica's joke about me disappearing. "Did you think it was funny?" He sighed and unbuckled his seatbelt. "Sarah, don't start. You know how Jessica gets." "She didn't mean anything by it." "But you laughed," I said. "It was a joke. Not everything needs to be analyzed to death. Stop making mountains out of molehills." And with that, he got out of the car like he'd just closed the discussion, like my pain was just inconvenient background noise. That night, while he snored peacefully beside me, I lay awake staring at the ceiling, replaying every moment from the past 8 years. I thought about who I used to be: bold, creative, proud of my work. I realized how I'd slowly erased myself trying to fit into a mold shaped by people who never wanted me there anyway. At 2:15 in the morning, I slipped out of bed and tiptoed to my home office. Laptop open, fingers surprisingly steady. I opened my private savings account, the one I'd never mentioned to David, and started planning. Apartments in Portland where Carmen lived. Car rentals. Moving services. Legal separation. Procedures. One-way flights. By sunrise, I had a complete escape plan. Not just to leave, but to reclaim my life. David left that morning for golf with his father. He kissed my forehead absent-mindedly, grabbed his clubs, and reminded me to pack his phone chargers for his trip. The moment his car disappeared down the street, I exhaled like I'd been holding my breath for years. I called my college roommate, Maya, the one person who'd stayed close even as the Reynolds world slowly pushed everyone else away. "Can you come over right now?" I asked. "I need help with something important." She arrived 90 minutes later with coffee, moving boxes, and pure determination written across her face. No questions asked. "Just tell me what we're packing." We worked fast and efficiently. I grabbed clothes, my laptop, important documents, Sentimental items, photos of my mom, my grandmother's silver bracelet. Old journals. Maya boxed everything else and promised to store whatever wouldn't fit in my Honda. You absolutely sure about this? She asked, as we sealed the last box. I nodded firmly. I've never been more certain of anything. While Maya packed, I handled the financial logistics. I transferred exactly half of our joint savings, not a penny more. I paid my portion of upcoming bills, made a list of all subscriptions in my name, canceled what I wouldn't need. No petty revenge, no drama, just clean separation. By 3 o'clock, my car was loaded with the essential pieces of my life. Before leaving, I sat at our kitchen table, the same spot where Patricia once told me I should consider straightening my naturally curly hair if I wanted to be taken seriously. In business, I slipped off my wedding ring and placed it in a small jewelry box beside a printed note. The note read, "You said no one would notice if I disappeared. Consider this a social experiment. I've taken only what I contributed. Everything else remains yours. Please don't contact me until you've taken time to understand why I left. P.S. Tell Jessica her joke worked perfectly." I placed it next to a copy of the cookout invitation with Jessica's words written in my handwriting. If Sarah vanished tomorrow, would anyone really miss the silence? I left without slamming doors or making scenes. Just quiet, dignified freedom. Driving away, I didn't cry. Each highway mile marker felt like another layer of pretense falling away. By the time I crossed into New Mexico, I was singing along to songs I hadn't heard in years. That night, I checked into a modest but clean hotel outside Albuquerque, registered under my maiden name. The pillows weren't designer quality, the comforter was basic. But I slept 9 hours straight, the first peaceful sleep I'd had in maybe 8 years. The next morning, I turned my phone on just long enough to text my mother and Carmen. I'm safe. I've left David. I'll explain everything soon. Please don't tell anyone where I am. Then I powered it off again. No drama, no confrontation, just distance and healing. When I reached Portland 3 days later, the sky opened with gentle rain. That soft, steady drizzle felt more like a blessing than a burden. Carmen had worked miracles on her end. She'd found me a two-month furnished studio apartment in the Hawthorne district. It wasn't luxurious Greeky wooden floors, thin walls, and a vintage gas stove, but it was completely mine. Sorry it's so small, Carmen apologized as we carried boxes up to flights of stairs. No, I whispered, running my fingers along the chipped windowsill. It's absolutely perfect. That first week blurred together with logistics. New bank account, prepaid phone, updated freelance profiles online. Removed any client work connected to David's network. Re-registered my consultancy under my maiden name, Sarah Martinez Marketing Solutions. David's messages started constant but gradually slowed. First came panic. Where are you? Call me immediately. This is completely ridiculous. You're being incredibly selfish. Then concern. Your mom's worried sick. At least let me know you're alive. Then guilt. My Singapore trip is in 2 days. I can't focus knowing you're out there somewhere. We can work this out. Just come home. But never once, not a single time, did he mention Jessica's joke or his own laughter, or what any of it meant to me, so I stayed silent and kept rebuilding. Carmen became my anchor. She helped me find a therapist named Dr. Alina Vasquez, who specialized in family trauma and identity recovery. I didn't realize how much pain I'd swallowed until the second session when Alina asked, "When was the first time you felt invisible in that family?" In month 2, things started shifting. I landed 3 small marketing projects through freelance platforms. Nothing glamorous, rebranding for wellness coaches and event promotional materials. But each completed job stitched confidence back into my soul. One rainy Thursday, I wandered into this cozy coffee shop 2 blocks from my apartment. The walls showcased local murals, bold, colorful, unapologetically vibrant. The barista noticed me staring. "Beautiful, right?" she said. The owner's actually looking for someone to redesign the menu boards and website. She loves supporting local talent. An hour later, I sat across from the shop's owner, Diana Chen, a 50-something powerhouse with short silver hair, oversized glasses, and the energy of someone who'd burned every bridge she didn't want to cross again. "Let me see your real work," she said, waving away my client portfolio. "No, not the professional stuff. Show me what you create when nobody's watching." Hesitantly, I opened an old folder labeled "Just Me." Inside were designs I'd made for pure joy, bright colors, abstract shapes, Latini-inspired patterns, the kind of art I hadn't touched since college. Diana studied them silently, then looked at me directly. "You've been hiding who you really are." She hired me immediately, but with one condition: every week, I want one personal piece. Doesn't have to be perfect. Just authentic, just yours. And so I began healing, one creative piece at a time, like pulling sunshine from under heavy clouds. Meanwhile, David's contacts slowed to occasional texts. When I finally filed for divorce 3 months later, he responded with resigned acceptance. No drama, no desperate pleas, just the official paperwork returned with his signature. I kept my grandmother's bracelet, the only piece that had ever truly felt mine. Everything else, the Reynolds social connections, the luxury linens, the carefully curated guest lists, could stay in that world where it belonged. Behind me, 6 months into my new life, I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was genuinely thriving. Diana's coffee shop redesign caught attention from a regional design blog. That article led to a feature in Portland Monthly magazine. That feature generated inquiries from other businesses. Soon, I was managing real clients, my own clients, for the first time in years. One afternoon, I opened an email with the subject line, "Opportunity, National Campaign Inquiry, Meridian Foods Inc." The brand name made me pause. I knew it was owned by Reynolds Development Group, David's family company. I called Diana immediately. "This has to be some kind of trap," I told her. "Could be legitimate," she replied. "Your work's been getting press lately. Maybe they just appreciate your style, but what if they know it's me? Then you show up and remind them exactly who you are now." After careful consideration, I agreed to the initial meeting. It was with Northwest Creative Partners, a third-party agency handling Meridian's rebranding. No Reynolds names were mentioned, and the creative director, Marcus, seemed completely unaware of my history. He focused purely on business timelines, budgets, deliverables. The project involved redesigning Meridian's entire organic product line. Massive scope, national distribution, budget twice what I'd ever charged. I signed the contract, and for 3 weeks, everything flowed smoothly. Feedback was excellent, the process efficient. Then came the email. Meridian Foods to unveil complete rebrand at Annual Innovation Summit. Attendance encouraged for lead designers. My stomach dropped because I knew what that meant. The Reynolds family would all be there. I brought this dilemma to therapy. Dr. Vasquez presented 3 options. Don't attend and stay safe. Go but hide in the background. Or go and own your space. She leaned forward. What would today's Sarah do? The answer came clearly. I would attend, and I would not shrink. I hired a professional stylist, something the old me would have considered wasteful. We chose a deep emerald tailored blazer with matching wide leg pants. Sophisticated, modern, impossible to ignore. The night of the summit, I stood in my downtown hotel mirror and barely recognized myself. Not because I looked like someone else, but because I finally looked like me again. Not a watered down Reynolds wife, not a diminished consultant, just Sarah, whole and visible. The venue was a restored theater transformed with minimalist decor and dramatic lighting. I checked in, ordered the signature cocktail, and began networking with fellow designers and business executives. 40 minutes in, I felt the energy shift. I heard that familiar laugh, William's booming voice, unmistakable. Then Patricia, then Jessica. I didn't look immediately, but I felt their stares. When I finally glanced up, David stood across the room, looking thinner, more rigid, like someone who'd just seen a ghost. Our eyes met. He blinked hard. I didn't. Then I calmly turned to the bartender and ordered sparkling water. Minutes later, William approached. "Sarah," he said, voice carefully controlled, eyes searching. "Mr. Reynolds," I replied professionally. "I'm the lead designer on the Meridian project." His surprise flickered briefly. I wasn't aware the work was outsourced through Northwest Creative. "We've achieved excellent results in preliminary testing," I clarified. He nodded slowly. "You seem, different." I smiled. "Not different. Just myself again." Jessica appeared next, interrupting my conversation with other attendees. "Sarah," she said, all teeth and no warmth. "Nobody mentioned you were involved in this project." I tilted my head slightly. "You didn't think I'd stay gone forever, did you?" Marcus approached just then, extending his hand to Jessica. "Jessica Reynolds, I've heard about your family's work. Sarah's been absolutely phenomenal for us." Jessica's smile wavered noticeably. "We're family," she told him. We're family, I added gently. And then I walked past her. When the presentation began, I took the stage and presented the new brand identity, digital marketing strategy, and visual storytelling with complete confidence. I made jokes, fielded questions, shared insights. The room responded with genuine enthusiasm, not polite obligation. From the stage, I could see them seated in the third row. William, unreadable. Patricia, tight-lipped. Jessica whispering urgently to David. David never took his eyes off me. The challenge had been disappearing. The victory was reappearing on my own terms. After the presentation, industry leaders surrounded me. Startup founders, journalists, potential clients all, wanting my card, a quote, a meeting. I moved through the crowd with steady composure. I had earned every bit of this attention. No shortcuts, no Reynolds connections, just pure talent and hard work. Eventually, the crowd thinned. I was collecting my materials when David finally approached. You look, different, he said quietly, grounded, like you're actually home. I nodded. Portland suits me perfectly. I had no idea you were involved in this project, he said softly. That was completely intentional, I replied. He shifted, uncomfortably, hands deep in his pockets. Your presentation was incredible. You always had that talent. I still do, I said firmly. Present tense. He paused, swallowing hard. I've been thinking constantly about everything. About Jessica's joke, about all the years I let things slide. He took a shaky breath. I miss you, Sarah. His voice cracked slightly. I didn't feel the pain I'd expected. No satisfaction either, just complete clarity. I know you do, I said gently, but I'm not the same woman who begged to be seen and valued. He nodded slowly, absorbing that truth. I'm not asking to get back together. I just needed to say it out loud. I met his gaze directly. Thank you for saying it. That means something. As I turned to leave, Patricia appeared. Her smile was tight, brittle around the edges. Sarah, darling, you're doing so wonderfully for yourself. She glanced at my outfit like it personally offended her. Always did love your creativity. I returned her smile, firm but genuinely kind. I appreciate that. Though I seem to recall my desserts weren't quite good enough for Reynolds gatherings. A flicker of discomfort crossed her face. That was just a misunderstanding. Multiple misunderstandings, I said, calm as still water. But we all grow and learn. That night, I skipped the after-party and returned to my hotel. I kicked off my heels, stood at the floor-to-ceiling window, and watched Portland sparkle below me. I had faced them all on my own terms, not as David's wife. Not as an outsider desperately seeking approval, but as a woman who had disappeared and returned as her authentic self. The next day, I participated in the Meridian workshop as a featured speaker. I presented strategies for integrated digital marketing and answered thoughtful, respectful questions. At the back of the room, I noticed David again. Afterward, he approached carefully. Would you be open to coffee? Just 30 minutes. I agreed, purely as professional courtesy. We sat quietly with our drinks. He told me he'd started therapy, that his relationship with his family had evolved, that he now saw things through completely different eyes. I thought you were just being overly sensitive, he admitted. But I was actively complicit. I let them systematically erase who you were. I believed his sincerity. I genuinely did, but I had absolutely no desire to move backward. I think we both had to lose something important, I said, to discover what we needed to find within ourselves. As we prepared to part ways, he asked quietly, is there any chance someday, I paused thoughtfully. I really like who I'm becoming now, I said honestly. A week later, I received a professional email from Jessica. Not hostile, not warm, just appropriately respectful. Your work on the Meridian rebrand was truly exceptional. Regardless of our past, I wanted you to know. That was all the closure I needed. 1 month later, I signed a lease on a small house in southeast Portland. Modest, sunny, filled with second-hand furniture and first-hand joy. I joined a community garden cooperative. I adopted a rescue cat named Frida. I started dating again, intentionally, without desperation or fear. I reconnected with my creative roots, leading workshops for other women rebuilding their lives after difficult relationships. I mentored young Latina designers. And I kept creating art every single week. Just for myself. The cruel joke Jessica made, if Sarah vanished tomorrow, would anyone really miss the silence? Had been the push I didn't know I desperately needed? I did disappear completely. But I reappeared brighter, stronger, undeniably visible to the world, to people who truly mattered, and most importantly, to myself. Have you ever walked away from a situation where you felt invisible, only to rediscover who you really are? Share your story in the comments. Your experience might inspire someone else who needs to hear it. If this story resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share with someone who might need that final push to reclaim their authentic life. Until next time, remember, you don't need anyone's permission to disappear from their version of you. You just need the courage to reappear as your truest self. See you in the next story.